Tonight on Inside Out, tackling hate crime with pride, but older victims aren't reporting.
41 years old, that is.
Yeah, almost as long as we've been together.
Yeah.
We've got to challenge every bit of abuse that comes our way, because if we don't, it's going to escalate and escalate and escalate.
Now, incidents of hate crime are said to be on the rise, but the police fear that it's older members of the LGBT community who are less likely to report any abuse, and it's thought that many don't trust the police because of bad experiences in the past. Simon Hare's report contains some strong language on this sensitive issue.
Belper in Derbyshire's Derwent Valley. Perhaps an unlikely location for a sexual revolution. It's a community at the forefront of a fight for acceptance.
41 years old, that is.
Yeah, almost as long as we've been together.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's just something to do with...
A fight back against hatred and intolerance.
We've got to challenge every bit of abuse that comes our way.
And a campaign to regain trust after potential victims of a serial killer were treated as criminals themselves.
They've lived a lifetime of protecting themselves from the police.
This is a walking group with a difference. It's for Belper's lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans community.
Florence Calder in the 1880s was a governess to the...
Today's destination, the town's river gardens.
They became very friendly. How friendly, we can only speculate. Suddenly had to work...
It's being led by local author Narvel Annable. But the truly unusual thing is the presence of police staff. They've become an important part of Golden Rainbows, a support group for older LGBT people. But Narvel says there's still some way to go before he and his husband Terry feel accepted by wider society.
Would I like to walk hand in hand with Terry? Sometimes it would be nice, yeah. It would be. I mean, we're so used to being cautious. As Lady Bracknell said, "My dear, you will be exposed to comment on the platform." That's the thing. That's what people are afraid of.
Back at the Belper Community Cottage, Golden Rainbows holds its monthly meeting. Similar groups exist elsewhere in the county, but others don't have the police there.
It took a long time, almost a year, for the group to interact fully with me, and as a result, some of the incidents that occur to them, they may not go to their local police station to report them, but they'll come and tell me.
About their roles, and then I'll be...
Today, hate crime worker John is talking about upsetting homophobic incidents from his own life.
People get verbally abused on the street every day. I've experienced that myself in Derby. I was at the Into Centre with my husband, holding hands, just as we were coming out of the centre onto the street, and this woman said something very unpleasant about us being puffs.
In the past, I would like to think wherever there's a crime being committed, it would have been investigated, but we all know at times some of those words might have just been, oh, it's playful banter. It's not, and we need to be better at it.
We welcome people like Fred come into groups like we run here. We want them to come to every group that we do, so that our older people can see that they can report things to the police, and the police understand, and they'll be believed, and it'll be reported and investigated thoroughly.
After a long day of walking and talking, it's time for some relaxation. While Terry tinkles the ivories, Narvel mulls over the plot for his latest gay thriller. They've been together since 1976, after being introduced by a mutual friend.
He showed me a picture of Narva. I'm married, been married for 13 years, got 2 boys and 2 girls at home. And I'm looking at, it was turning me. I thought, oh, I said, he's nice. I said, well, I'd like to meet him. Anyway, it took me several attempts to ring him. I thought I didn't. I felt something very serious had going to happen.
It did. When Terry came out, his foster children were taken from him and he was placed in a mental hospital and offered so-called conversion therapy.
Most homosexuals, men, who can hide, do hide to avoid the pain. The question in the River Gardens this morning was, would we walk down the River Gardens hand in hand? And I answered honestly, no.
No. Because you didn't want the hassle of, and all you get mocked and all sorts. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Not worth it, so you don't.
Historically, pre-1967, it was illegal to be in a gay relationship. And obviously, we've got to overcome those barriers because by virtue of being born a gay man, they were born a criminal.
Deep in the files of the Derbyshire Record Office lies a confidential document that helps to further explain that mistrust of the police. It's a photo album and register of known gay men in part of the county, compiled before partial legalisation.
It relates, we believe, to the bubble car murders in Chesterfield, which were 2 murders of gay men in Chesterfield in the early 1960s. And as part of that investigation, the police obviously spoke to and collected information about gay men within the town.
There seemed to be a panic amongst the police. Who is this? What can we do? So a lot of people who'd never had any experience with the police and probably never have since were going about doing their business and then were picked up and put into these situations.
John Rain was a journalist at the time. As well as covering the case and a man's subsequent conviction for a total of 3 murders, he also reported on an inquest into the tragic suicide of a man innocently caught up in the inquiry.
Brought him for questioning, who clearly was an innocent man, felt himself to be a victim, and very quickly after that interview had gassed himself. So I guess that's part of the climate of the day, that people had this perception of homosexual men, that they were to be hounded.
Sadly, homophobic incidents do continue today. There have been 3 in this part of Derby alone in recent months.
We've seen just recently a kind of rash of attacks on LGBT plus people leaving kind of one of the venues, and I think that is really sad. We have very few safe spaces as a community left.
Just think, well, but you don't like them having it.
Today the police are working closely with the LGBT community to make them safer. And back in Belper, last month they helped to create one massive safe space. The town staged its first ever Pride March, or appropriately for Belper, Pride Strut. An estimated 2,000 people took part.
And hello, Belper Pride!
To see such a small town with so many people come together, it's nice to know that people are becoming more accepting of our community.
Look at the role the police have played here today. They've engaged really, really brilliantly.
And we've got to show those very communities that we're accepting change, so can they accept us?
They should report hate crime wherever they see it or they experience it, because I don't want them to suffer in silence.
A woman my sort of age came up to me and said, I grew up in Belper and this is the street that I got the most abuse on, and I've just marched down this street celebrating who I am.
And what about Terry and Narvel? Was there any hand-holding today?
I just looked at Narva, gave one another a kiss, with all those, which were walking down.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? I
and
just felt
thought,
like kissing him.
I didn't even think about that.
Tomorrow, the day after that, I don't think we'd have the courage. but we've made progress.
Did you ever think you'd see this in Belper?
Never. This is my hometown, and it's so emotional, it really is.
They're all there smiling and cheering you on. You think, there's no hostility whatsoever here. It's incredible.
How happy did they look, hey? Pride and progress in Belper. And you can find details of organisations offering advice and support with issues relating to sexuality online at bbc.co.uk/actionline. Now, illegal rape...